really like smaller than a can of soda.
Yeah, that's
Wild.
going to pack a powerful punch when it's done with all the information you're going to share with me.
All right.
So this right here is what again?
This is, if you kind of pan over to the left, down, that's the New York Stock Exchange.
All right.
This is, oddly enough, now if you take a look around, one of the things that's interesting is all these tourists outside here. This is probably more than the people, a larger amount of people than actually work in the stock exchange. The inside that building, right, is a giant, vast pit that used to be full of people, but it has now been replaced by machines. And it's, in fact, a very kind of sad reminder that not just kind of laborers are losing jobs, but also the people who run the machinery of high finance are being
Professionals.
gassed out as well.
White collar.
It used to be thousands of people inside the pit. Now it's, I think, about 700 working there, which is really kind of a ragtag crew. Like when they take photos and stuff, they try to hustle them all into like one corner to make it look busy.
You look like a crowd.
So, I'll tell you just a little bit about my history, and I'll give some context for what happened here. My mother was a school teacher and a high school counselor, and she, saved her pennies, put them in the bank for 30 years plus, and when the stock market crashed in 2008, she lost about a little more than half of her savings.
Mm-hmm.
She was furious, absolutely furious.
Mm-hmm.
And then she had retired 3 days before the stock market crashed. All right, given up her job, stock market crashes, everything she saved becomes worth much, much, much less. And then she realizes, like, oh, shit, I have to get another job. And they won't take her back at her old job, right? Because they've already hired somebody young who works for half as much. They're not hiring anybody because the country's sliding into a recession.
Right.
And she's, 65-year-old person who has, overly qualified, So she's screwed. She looks for years for another job. Depressed, and it goes from, very angry to very depressed. Now, talking to her repeatedly on the phone, listening to your mom cry on the phone is not pleasant, and it made me very angry. And I came up with this idea to bring the media attention back to Wall Street. Because a couple years after the crash, no one was talking about Wall Street. The New York Times ran an article in the summer of 2011 about how bankers were getting bigger bonuses than ever, that it was going fabulously. This was the moment when people were beginning to talk about the fact that, oh my God, it was a giant scam, right? They just fucking worked us. It wasn't a crisis. We got worked.
It was a big gamble.
Right? And so this was not massive public knowledge. It was just starting to come out. One of the things that I wanted was to really focus media attention on this for some large-scale reform. So I talked to the city of New York, and they run this thing called the Lower Manhattan Cultural Council, which was developed after 9/11, right? Because after 9/11, this entire area was abandoned, essentially. It's covered in human ash, and nobody wanted to come here.
This is really close to the World Trade Center.
The World Trade Center is right at the end of the street to the right.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So nobody wanted to come down here, and all the businesses failed. And so one of the things that the city did to try to re-enliven the neighborhood is created this thing called the Lower Manhattan Cultural Council, which is like bring artists in to do, because there was so much empty office space, like use that office space for artists to do projects in and get some kind of traffic here again, because it really was like an abandoned war zone. So I talked to them. They give me right across the street here from grew up in is Stockton. Across the street is a place called 14 Walls. They give me an entire floor in the basement. This is a studio to plan this project. Right? Which is very, very kind of them. I take 6 months and I walk up and down this stretch of street from Trinity Church here at the end, all the way down to the water, the East River. This one street called the Wall, right? And it's really has come to represent financial interests in the United States. It used to actually be a wall that the Dutch built. This was the final edge of the city, right? The city was over there. This was where American Indians would chop your head off if you came outside the wall, you know. After, of course, we fucked them numerous times, or the Dutch fucked them numerous times. And the English got some in there too. Then they were, you know, because at first they were very kind. And then, of course, you know, you rip them off enough and kill enough of them. And then they're like, hey, we'll kill you if you come outside of this wall, asshole.
They figured it out.
Yeah. So this was the wall, and that's why it's called Wall Street. I walked up and down the street for 6 months, talking, going in every business on the street, finding out who actually works here, what they do, right? I took a study. Everybody from, you know, your train system, your MTA workers, to FedEx and UPS, to bank traders, to you know, lawyers, attorneys, you know, prostitutes. There's a massive prostitution ring here on Wall Street, servicing kind of the banker elite. Dog walkers, retail spaces, hot dog sellers, everything, right? I've got this collated all this data in a 6-month study. Then I recruited 50 people, right, to be percentage-wise per capita these professions, right? Monday morning, August 1st, everybody comes up out of the train system and then walks to work here and begins doing these professions, like a janitor pushing brooms, people selling things, you know, cops walking around, doing these jobs. Then, in the process, over 5 minutes, taking off all of their clothes while continuing to do these jobs, right?
Nice.
Yeah. So, all of a sudden, it's the massive police response, right? Now, most of it was here. Because you can shoot somebody in the face in New York and it's not a big deal. But if you take your clothes off, right, then all of a sudden everybody's got a problem, right?
Scary stuff.
Very conservative New York City in this weird puritanical Protestant way, you know? So right over here on this corner, I was selling hot dogs naked. Yes. A cop walked by. It was amazing. It was right at the beginning of the performance, and I had no clothes on. The cop walks by, and I said, hey, you want a hot dog? Free hot dog. And the cop, for a brief moment, right? There's this weird thing that goes beneath everything you've ever been trained to do, right? Is if somebody offers you free food, your hand immediately is like, oh.
Sure.
And he went like this, he was like, no.
Oh, what a great cop.
Yeah, it was amazing. And then he promptly arrested my friend standing next to me who was a janitor sweeping up things, and 2 other people. 3 people get arrested. I have to go uptown to go bail them out of the precinct, right? They charge them with indecent exposure, even though the woman who was arrested only has her shirt off, which is legal in New York City to have your shirt off for men, women, undecided, and, you know, trans. So they arrest her illegally. Then they threaten to take her to Bellevue, like a psychiatric ward, all this crazy stuff. Which she sued the city of New York and won later for, but different story. She was the head of the nudist colony here in New York, and is really not the lady to fuck with about those issues. She knows the law very well. Yeah. So this causes a massive amount of press. Like every news outlet in the world reports on this, and they do a pretty good job, actually. Right? As far as reporting what actually happened, New York Times wrote a long article and they really nailed it. And then, you know, everybody from AP to BBC, NPR, all of them, right? report on it, and it starts to focus more attention on Wall Street, like what our actual cause is. Now, a couple weeks later, I get a call from a guy, and he says, or I get an email, and then he calls me. He said, look, I read the stuff about your performance on Wall Street. We're putting together another performance. We want to talk to you. We want you to help us put it together. And I was very skeptical, right? Because I'd come under a lot of police scrutiny at that point, right? And they're definitely watching me. And I was like, okay, like I'll meet you, open place. We'll meet at a cafe, very busy West Village place, you know. We meet and chat. And I'd surmise, yes, he's legit. He's crazy, but he's legit, you know?
Good enough.
Yeah. He's very unorganized. This is my initial opinion, right? It's like you need to, for starters, take this seriously and like come up with some plans, you know? Like if you're gonna do this, you need to think through things, you know? Otherwise, everybody just gets arrested and you do nothing, you know? So, we sit down and we talk a lot about logistics and how to plan large-scale protest on Wall Street. Now, at this time, you could still get closer to these buildings than you can now. Because they've really, like, if you stand up and look, this is an entire street here that they've really made just one sidewalk. Before you could get much closer. Since 9/11, you could never touch it. So, we talk a lot about this park called Liberty Plaza, which is around the corner, which I'll take you to in just a second. Now, Liberty Plaza has another name, which they, tried to use, which is Zuccotti Park.
Oh.
Right? The name of Zuccotti Park is he's developing town, right? So it was always called Liberty Plaza by people here, right? Because this is more in this building. There's an image here. Where there was a whipping of slaves, and the location of the bank is here. It's called Downing Oyster House. Once stood in the basement. All the slaves were whipped here. Guess where it was done? This is now a museum. This is a fantastic museum. You should go, but it used to be federal.
Oh.
But one of my favorite things, and we'll get back to Zuccotti Park and all that stuff. One of my favorite things is this building here, right? Look around. This is called canyons, right? Because there's massive skyscrapers built on tiny streets. You get no sun, right? And it really does look like canyons. We'll walk around a little bit and you'll see it's just it's crazy. This lot gets leveled, and then J.P. Morgan buys this lot, right? And everybody's expecting them to build the tallest building in the world, right? Because this is, really the fever of the moment is, right? Like, the Flatiron Building, all of these buildings around here, just to build the tall as you can, right? He buys this building and he builds a 2-story building on it, directly across the street from New York Stock Exchange, with no signage on it whatsoever, and he calls it his office, right? As a fuck you to the system that I'm so rich I can build a 2-story building in the most valuable lot in the world, but no sign on it because everybody in the world knows who's there and knows what I do.
Make me.
Yes. There's an incredible amount of hubris and pride in this tiny building here.
Wow.
Yeah. Which now has been vacant for, 6-7 years as they can't rent it to anybody. Like some Chinese company wanted to buy it, but it's still empty. So let's walk up a little bit, and I'll tell you a little bit more.
So